Zora Neale Hurston, Claiming a Space. Fascinating story. I'm not going to lie. When I was watching it, it was like, oh my goodness. And I think one of the most fascinating things is how are we, a lot of us anyway, just now hearing about this?
I'm not sure. I think that there's a challenge in our society to get stories of the African diaspora out and into the world. A film like this, it costs money. You have to convince people to give you money. Some of the things that Zora Neale Hurston faced, I think, as filmmakers, Black filmmakers, and other groups, we face challenges getting support for the stories that we feel are significant. Fortunately, American experience felt strongly that this was an important story to tell, and I feel honored that they selected me to tell Zora Neale Hurston's story.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those where, especially looking at the time that it happened, it's like, how is this lady, especially a female of color, able to do a lot of the things she did? Because, she's writing books, she's traveling the country and, doing different things. And it's like, wow, that was unthought of, back at that time.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think about Zora Neale Hurston driving on. First of all, let's just recall there was no interstate system. So she's in these cars and traveling all sorts of roads. And I can imagine that the rural roads were very rural back then, right? And she's alone. She decided she should needed a gun. And she's often, navigating through a world that the hostility towards African Americans was quite overt.
Right.
The Klan was bigger, and 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 she's often in places where she's, if not the only woman, one of the few women. She has to sometimes sleep in her car because she can't just check into any hotel or motel. But she is driven by something inside her,
Yeah.
particularly after, once she discovered anthropology,
Mhm.
she was passionate and was not going to let anything stop her from trying to collect and tell the stories and collect the folklore of Black people and bring it to the audience. She thought it was important and beautiful. And she also thought it was important that it be analyzed by someone like her, who was African American, that could understand the material.
Right. I mean, and even just the way, another thing that even stuck out to me was the part where she had been asked to kind of like change the vocabulary with the stuff she had written, just so other people could supposedly understand. But her deal was, no, this is how these people said it, and this is how it should be presented.
Yeah, in 1927, she actually interviewed Cudjo Lewis two times, but in the film we only talk about the second time. She not only interviewed Cudjo Lewis, who was this man who came from Africa. He was a formerly enslaved person, one of the last people in the United States who could, had the memory of being in Africa, being captured, his trip across, and life in America. He co-founded the town where he lived called Africa Town, outside of Mobile, Alabama. And she spent time with him. She filmed him
Wow.
and she collected his story. And she tried to collect his dialect and the way he spoke because she thought that was significant as a person and also as a social scientist to be authentic. And so in 1931, when she was ready to publish the book that was known as Barracoon, no publishers wanted her to publish it with the dialect written that way because they felt like white audiences wouldn't be able to read it and understand. And she put her foot down and was not doing it. And Barracoon was never published during her lifetime. It was published in 2018.
Wow. Jeez. Like I said, almost what, 6 years after she passed, pretty much. But yeah, that's
87 years.
wow.
After she passed.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yes. I'm sorry. Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, no,
Yes.
no. But one other thing that you touched on, and this I found very important, and I'll even share a story about my family with it, was the fact that she did shoot film. She did record these people. So you've got the video and so many different things. And that to me just really even added even more to the story because, back then nobody had, video or movie cameras at all. But at least you've got this video which showed the times, which was great.
Yes, I am delighted to be able to include footage that Zora Hurston herself shot in this documentary. I sometimes think about, well, where did she learn how to use the camera? Who taught her? You know, was she on the side of the road, changing the film, because you have to do it in the dark. For those of you who don't know about film, you can't let it be exposed to the light. Like, what was her process? Where did she get it processed? I have all these questions that no one seems to know the answers to, and so it's interesting that she actually got the camera because of her patrons, Charlotte Osgood Mason,
Mhm.
and it's beautiful footage because you can tell, I feel like you can tell that she has a really positive relationship with the people she's filming. She's filming everyday Black people and adults and children doing various things. And I feel like the warmth, and I also think you can tell it's ethnographic research, right? Particularly with the footage of the young woman walking to the screen and turning her head, and then she has these beautiful shots of just women lounging on a porch, and I, me and the rest of the team, we were just all taken by this footage and tried to use as much as possible in the documentary. And another way she's ahead of her time is that in terms of film is that anthropology wasn't interested in motion picture at the time. They thought it was too cumbersome, expensive, and they felt that what you could see in motion picture wasn't enough detail, not enough information. And so she was definitely way ahead of her time in selecting film. And she's the one who, for when she was down in Beaufort, South Carolina, told her friend, "You got to get a crew down here." And so we have that beautiful footage in the Commandment Keeper Church that both starts the film and we also see it near the end of the film. That includes Zora Neale Hurston. So it's a good thing that she wasn't filming her that time, because we can see her playing the drums and participating in the services.
Absolutely. And the way how that, honestly, I had to add this. I wanted to tell you the way that hit home to me is my father bought a movie camera back in 1959 and he started shooting everything, both sides of the family, his side, my mom's side, and everything else. And I just remember as a little kid, people always went, Clarence, will you put that camera down? Because it, had that bright light and da 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 da. Well, here it is.
Those lights.
Right. Here it is now, 6 years later, and the people who are still around are going, can you please, because I digitized it all, can you please send me a copy of it? We want to see, our family members and see what was going on back then. And it is beautiful to have that stuff now kind of like archived in your family so you can see what was going on at the time and see your family the way they were. And, for those of us still around, about how we were when we were kids. So, I mean, that was just great.
I've done that same process. I was able to, recently we started, my husband and I, making scratch copies of the home movies, and it's really powerful. And everyone does want a video. They want to see it. And I'm actually hoping in the future to make a film with my own family's home movies.
Yeah, I mean, it is. They're like I said, they're just fascinating stories, to see and all the different things. Now, also for this one, I even told one of the other teachers, I also do an after school program for kids here in Detroit in regards to
Nice.
performance and different things like that. I'm going to definitely, have them see this film because I want them to know more about the history and, just more about what was going on and especially more about this woman and what she had to go through.
Yeah, and it's interesting that Zora Neale Hurston also was interested in performance and theater. I mean, she could do so many different things. She was so passionate about so many things. And this idea that she is a genius is something that I definitely take seriously. But yeah, she had a play that she wrote, The Great Day, among other plays. And unfortunately, even though it went to Broadway, it didn't get picked up. She thought that theater and drama would be the way to share folklore, and that it would help change attitudes towards African Americans and African American culture. but unfortunately, it didn't work out for her. And we have a scholar who thinks that this is one of the real low points in her life in terms of um, where her heart was, and sadly she had to leave. It's also in that story you realize that her patron only let her have one pair of shoes at a time
Right.
because she has to ask for money, money to like, and my toe is coming out of my shoe. I need some money.
Yeah, and it made me think during COVID, I bought 25 pairs of shoes, having no place to wear any of them. But Tracy, thank you so much for your time. I could talk to you for hours, but I really appreciate your time and really loved your film. So thank you very, very much.
Oh, I'm glad to hear it. Thank you. I really appreciate talking to you. And I agree, we could probably talk all day.
Yes. Take care. Thanks so much.
Yeah, take care. Bye.